Hello and welcome back to the channel and welcome to a Lost Q&A Ramble. It's true that I've already made this video once before as a Q&A live stream a couple of days after I finished watching the final episode. And while it was really great to interact with a lot of you in real time, I was tired, I was a bit nervous. Well, I was a lot nervous. I'd never done a live stream before. And you know that feeling you get when you really know a subject, but then you're put on the spot and everything about that subject just disappears from your head. That happened. So when I was being asked questions, I didn't have answers, or not ones that I was happy with. So I deleted the live stream and decided to make this video a little bit more thoughtful, a little bit more prepared. We're not going to go really deep in this ramble. We're just going to tackle the surface stuff. We might go a little bit deep. I want to save some of the deeper stuff for a later video once I've watched it a third time and really analysed it. So let's start. Question 1. 10 most favouriteest characters in the entire show. First off, Ben Linus. I mean, he's a brilliant character even when he was pretending to be somebody else. Then there's John Locke. Can't not include John Locke. He was a brilliant character even when he was pretending to be someone else. And even when someone else was pretending to be him. He was just awesome. After that, it comes down to how long we had to get to know them. Later characters just didn't get the time to be developed well enough to go on a favourites list. So I'm going to say Charlie, because I always had an affinity with Charlie. I don't know why, the musician thing, I think. Hurley, because as has been proved, it is mathematically and scientifically impossible not to love Hugo. Desmond, obviously. Juliet, I didn't like her at first, but then again we weren't meant to trust her at first. She was one of the others. Now we've got Saeed. Again, Saeed was a complicated character, but we just got a lot of time to get to know the real man behind what he was. So yeah, his stories were always very interesting. Daniel, again, a character that I really didn't like at first, didn't trust, but he grew on me. And towards the end, I was really rooting for him. It was such a shame that he didn't make it to the final episode properly. Sun. The Sun really grew on me as well. And I feel like this list is missing female representation, and I don't want to pick Kate. No, I liked Sun. No more to it. Again, didn't particularly trust her at first, didn't particularly like her at first, but over time she grew on me. And I mean, I would put Claire in her place if Claire had been more prominent in the main storylines. She kind of got left behind and then went mad, and a character sort of flitted away. So, not Claire. Last place goes to Jack, because I can't ignore Jack. I fought it for a long time because he was the obvious hero of the show, and I don't like that obviousness, the all-American hero kind of thing. But yeah, as the more we got to know Jack, the more we realised that wasn't his character. He wasn't the all-American hero. He was the reluctant hero. And that I can relate to a little bit more. So, yeah, Jack takes the final spot. Question 2, related, 10 least favourite characters. Okay then, I'm probably a little bit biased on here because most of the characters on this list we didn't really get to know that well. We saw them or they were introduced in a negative light, and they were sort of written out of the series or sidelined, so that we never got to see a positive side of their character. Yeah, okay, Nikki and Paolo, both of them. Nikki and Paolo, yeah. Zoe, just didn't like her right from the outset, and with good reason, I think. Caesar, I kind of liked his character at the beginning, but it went nowhere. And that was a bit of a disappointment to me, and it kind of stuck in me that his character had a bit of potential and then just nothing. Danny, he was just a thug. Naomi, she wasn't a bad character, I just didn't get on with her that well. Phil, because he was Phil, and Rosinski, for the same reason, they were just horrible people. Susan, Mike's wife, I didn't like her at all. Again, because we saw her very negatively and from Michael's point of view, and he didn't have good feelings towards her anyway, so I kind of blame the perspective on that one, that we didn't really get to see Susan from Susan's point of view. And lastly, Helen, John's on-off girlfriend, fiance possibly. Just didn't like her, and I've got no excuses on this one because she was in multiple episodes and we got to see a good side and a bad side to her, but I just didn't like her at all. There you go. Question 3, not including finales, favourite 5 episodes. This gave me a lot of trouble. It was hard to pick. I think I can pick a favourite episode of each season, but throughout the entire 6 seasons, that becomes a little bit more of a difficult task. So my first favourite was Numbers, season 1, episode 18, and yeah. I once I'd got sort of past season 2, I went back and watched Numbers a number of times. Excuse the pun. So yeah, that was one of my first favourite episodes, so that definitely goes on the list. Flashes Before Your Eyes, because it contains one of my favourite scenes, and because it was the first Desmond flashback, and it was the first flashback where we started to get an inkling that something wasn't quite right. And it was very creepy and eerie in a weird sort of way, and I loved it. The most polarising of episodes, and I'm sticking it on this list because I actually absolutely loved it, Across the Sea, where we got the story of Jacob and his mother and his brother. There's a couple of scenes in there that I'm not too keen on because they create a lot of ambiguity within the plot. But on the whole, I loved the episode. And I loved that we went that far back. It's kind of what I was waiting for during the time travel period that my next choice comes from. This Place is Death. And I know we got Charlotte's death in it, which is not particularly one of my favourite scenes, I quite liked Charlotte, and her death seemed a little bit wasted, a little bit futile. But there was so much time travelling going on. And we got to the well, and John Locke turning the donkey wheel. Well, that might have come in the next episode. I can't remember, but that whole build up. Again, they went back. I think in another episode, like in this episode, but we didn't find out until a later episode, Lafleur, that they'd gone back to 1867 or something. Final of the 5. Greatest hits. Charlie saying goodbye. It was just, at the time, on the first watch, you don't really see the significance in it, and it feels like filler. It feels like filler, but on a rewatch, knowing what it's leading up to, it's so poignant and so beautiful. Especially when he writes the specific message to Claire, that his last favourite greatest hit was meeting her. It brings tears to my eyes just thinking about it. And finally, favourite finale. And that has to be the incident. Because again, we've got the culmination of all that time travel stuff and then being a bit stuck in the 70s. We got the answer to, well, we got an answer to what caused the Swan Station to be built and used the way it was and what it was venting. And we also got, at the beginning, that scene with Jacob and, I don't want to call him the Man in Black because I don't think he was the Man in Black at that point, but we got the scene with Jacob and the smoke monster, and we got all the Jacob's interference in their lives. So, and yeah, it was a brilliant finale. It was a brilliant finale. Second place would probably go to Through the Looking Glass, but I don't want to put that in first place because of Charlie's death. That still hurts. Question 4, least favourite 5 episodes. And that was remarkably easy up to a point. First off, Stranger in a Strange Land. The one thing I really didn't need to see was how Jack got his tattoo. That was so far down on my list of questions. That episode was just, I don't know what the writers were thinking. Same with Expose. Introducing 2 new characters that far into the plot line, right in the middle of everything, and telling this story of these awful people and how they end up getting buried alive. I don't care. I don't care. Thirdly, Fire and Water. And you know that was going to be on the list. You knew it all along. But surprisingly, I enjoyed it a lot more the second time round. I don't know if I actually got it, but I felt like I was close to getting what they were trying to achieve with this episode. So it's not an episode I hate like the previous 2, but it is my most favourite episode. The next 2, I don't hate these episodes. They're just the lowest down on my most favourite list, and that is Eggtown and The Moth. I could have picked other choices. It was very random, but they were 2 very uninteresting episodes for me on the second watch. They didn't seem to lead anywhere in particular. They seemed a bit rambly like this. It is. Question 5. Favourite story arc? Well, I've already mentioned that I loved the time travel story arc of the beginning of season 5. And I've already mentioned that the end of season 5 was my favourite finale. So I think, aside from the time travel one, I think the Is the Button Real story arc. I mean, the button itself presented this entirely new concept because it was introduced right at the beginning of season 2, and up till then we'd been watching a very strange survival show. The button introduced something different, something new. So the whole button thing was a brilliant story arc. But it was right at the end when John starts doubting, after question mark I think it is, when he starts doubting whether the button is actually a real thing. And then he gets Desmond involved, and then it ends up with the whole, turning the key thing. I think that was so exciting. I really didn't know what was going on the first time round. Everything was a complete surprise to me. And second time round, it's just as dramatic and just as powerfully written. So, yeah, that final sort of end of season 2 story arc where John starts doubting if the button is actually just a psychological test is going to be my favourite. Question 6. Which flashbacks made you excited for an episode? That's hard to tell because you never quite knew what flashbacks you were going to get. You maybe got 5 or 6 seconds where the camera focused on a particular character where you suddenly realised that it was going to be their flashback, but not enough time really sometimes to get excited or not get excited. So I suppose after flashes before your eyes, Desmond's flashbacks would be something, and I was very invested in Penny and getting to know Penny a little bit more. So Desmond's episodes were eagerly anticipated. Same with John. There were so many questions, and we had so long being teased of how he became paralysed that any time there was a John flashback, it could have led to that question being answered. So yeah, I was excited for John flashbacks as well. The follow-up to that question, 6B, which flashbacks didn't make me excited for an episode? After the What Kate Did episode at the beginning of season 2, Kate's flashbacks became less interesting, I think, and less eagerly anticipated. Question 7. Favourite couple or relationship? As for relationships, I'd have to say Penny and Desmond, because, well, we never they were always so far apart, so it was always a matter of like the excitement of seeing them come together very, very slowly, making contact and everything until they finally meet up again. So yeah, Penny and Desmond's relationship was a big thing. I was very invested in Charlie and Claire's relationship, just not so much. I mean, I always thought that Claire was sometimes a little bit too harsh on Charlie, and then he died, and then that killed that relationship. As for friendship relationships go, I think I really liked Hugo and, again, Charlie. Their friendship was really quite nice. Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Question 8. The most emotional death. Well, there's 3 to choose from, as far as I'm concerned. And I think you know the 3 that I'm going to say. Charlie's, Gin and Sons, because they died together, and Jack's at the very end. All 3 very, very emotional. A lot of the other deaths in the show were so sudden and unexpected that it didn't really have time to be emotional. Libby's, Anna Lucia's, Shannon's, Boone's. I mean, Boone's was a little bit protracted and a little bit emotional, but not as much as the three that I've just mentioned. And I think Charlie's has to be the most emotional, not least because he went in willingly and still had time to save or to warn Desmond about the possibility of danger, even as he was facing his final moments. And it was telegraphed from 2 episodes previously with Greatest Hits. So yeah, well, it was telegraphed a lot sooner than that. It was telegraphed in Flashes Before Your Eyes that Charlie was going to die. So yeah, when it finally happened, yeah, that was very emotional. Number 9, biggest character growth throughout the series. I mean, that's a hard one. When you think about how Ben, for instance, what he was when we first met him compared to who he was when we said goodbye to him at the end of the season 6, yeah, that's some character growth. Jack going from the earliest that we actually saw him in the flashbacks, bullied, doubtful, insecure, obsessive, all these things and more, to how we saw him right at the end, accepting his own death, accepting his own responsibilities and becoming even if only for a short period, the protector of the island. That's a hell of a lot of character growth as well. And I was thinking John, because there's a stark contrast between the John we see in the flashbacks and the John we see on the island. You know, the man we see in the flashbacks is broken. He's obsessed with knowing answers to questions he already knows the answers to. He just can't accept the answers as to why his father stole his kidney. He keeps asking why, and he knows why. His father is a bastard. It's simple as that. But then we see him on the island, right from the get-go. He is secure, confident, self-assured, a total different person. But unfortunately, during his Jeremy Bentham days, he goes back to being insecure and he goes back to how he was. The island really did do wonders for John, didn't it? Question 10. Favourite season? And that has got to be 2 or 5. Season 2 or season 5. The button and the whole button thing, or the time travel thing and being stuck in the 70s thing. I think probably season 5. I didn't label this one, so we've got a bonus question here because I forgot to number it. If you could save one person who died before the last episode, who would it be? And I think we all know the answer to that one, Charlie. Question 11. Are there any unanswered questions you would like to have been answered? No, but there is information that was in the bonus material that I would like to have seen inserted into the main canon of the show. That's the Sri Lanka video. Or more importantly, the Sri Lanka video part, the Dharma video part of the Sri Lanka video. The Dharma film, where it's revealed what the actual numbers were and what they represented. Because the numbers, they didn't get explained in the show properly, really. So, yeah, having that as bonus material, I think they should have put it into the main canon of the show, I think. Aside from that, I'm saying no, because I always knew there would be unanswered questions. I was expecting unanswered questions. And it just leaves more room for theorising, I think. there has to be some ambiguity in a show like this. I don't know if it comes up as a question later on, but there is a couple of things that were in the show that I maybe would like to not have seen in the show. I'd like to have been left a little bit more hanging than it was. But we'll come to that question if it arises. Question 12. Was Rose aware of the sideways timeline on the plane? Like the beginning of season 6 in LAX? I would say probably yes. I mean, Rose was a very aware person. So, yeah, why not? Yeah, why not? Number 13. My favourite scenes, moments or lines. In answer to this, please watch this short film.
Why there's a dead Pakistani on my couch?
It's okay, man. It's only a game.
I'll take it.
I'm sorry?
It's perfect. I'll take it.
No, you won't. Give me the ring. Give it here.
빨리 하고 마이크한테 어떻게 질 수가 있어? 졌어! I don't know where I am, but
I'll find you, Des.
I promise.
No matter what.
I'll come back to you.
I won't give up.
I promise.
I promise. I love you.
이 말도 안 되는 게임 누가 만든 거야? 나 그냥 들어가야 되는데 일마 이렇게. Penny!
Welcome back, Dr. Wizard.
I think it's Mr. Wizard.
Shut up.
You could talk to him about Boone if you want.
Don't buy the ring, Desmond.
Wait a second. We're not going to Guam, are we?
¡Veo el diablo! 난 아무도 없어.
Question 14. One character who didn't have a flashback that you wished did have one. Okay then, they kind of... Two characters intertwined. They kind of did have flashbacks, but their flashbacks were kind of from Desmond's point of view, and their past was told through the time travel elements, and that is Ellie and Charles Widmore, the young Ellie and Charles Widmore. One, I would like to have known how they ended up on the island, whether they were recruited by Richard at some point, or whether they somehow found themselves on the island, or maybe they were born on the island from some previous inhabitants of others. We don't know, and that's a kind of a question I would like to have had answered in flashback form. But also how Ellie ended up being the custodian of the lamppost, and more importantly how she ended up knowing what she did, because we was told all along that whatever happened. So Ellie, in the role of the jeweller, always knew that Desmond was going to end up on the island, even though they hadn't... You see what I mean? Ellie knew that Desmond was going to... Well, everything that Desmond was going to do. The boat race, leaving Penny, pushing the button for the next 3 years. She knew all of that, but it hadn't happened for her yet. So how did she know? I'd like to have known the answer to that one in Flashback. In fact, when I said that there was no unanswered questions, I was lying, wasn't I? Question 15. Most tragic life on the island. Most tragic life off the island. Probably Boone on the island. He just didn't last very long. And John kept saying he was a sacrifice the island demanded, but why? What exactly was the purpose of his death within the show's lore? Didn't serve anything. Off the island, probably John Locke, both during the 3 years during the Oceanic 6 timeline and in the flashbacks before the island. Most tragic life, definitely John Locke, for the reasons that I've already explained, because he was obsessed and he couldn't let go. He couldn't move on from what had happened to him. Question 16. What left you unsatisfied and how would you change it? Question 17. Do you think Walt's arc was wasted? Of which the answer is, of course, yes. And that did leave me unsatisfied in answer to question 16. But there was no way you could change it. The actor went through, had a growth spurt. And they couldn't conceivably keep him on as a 10-year-old over the course of a 3-year filming period. So that did leave me unsatisfied. The numbers thing left me unsatisfied, but and I've already said about the numbers. They could have inserted the information on the Sri Lanka video, and that's how I would have changed it. But the Walt thing, there's no way around it. You can't. There was nothing they could have done. Nothing anyone could have done. Question 18. Favourite piece of music from Lost? I'm still going through the soundtrack. I'm currently halfway through season 2 soundtrack. It's very choppy. I will say that. I was expecting some long semi-orchestral pieces, of which parts of them were used in scenes from Lost. But it does seem to be the other way round, where the music was composed specifically to fit a particular scene. So they're very short. You get a heavy action drums, heavy brass, sort of 2 minutes, and it'll transition into this beautiful life and death theme on violins and strings and piano. So, I mean, the music is absolutely fantastic, and I think the life and death theme, as well as Jacob's theme, have got to be my favourites at the moment. I haven't got to Jacob's theme in going through the soundtrack, but I did notice it in the show while I was watching it. So those two are probably my favourites at the moment, but that answer could change as I go through the soundtracks more and more. Question 19. Would you like to see a sequel or a reboot? No, I would not, and I would avoid it if one came about, most likely. Because, a reboot, the story's already been told, and despite the fact that it's 15 odd years old, or at least the first season is, it holds up remarkably well still. So there's no real need to remake it or reboot it. How would a reboot work anyway? Tell the same story again, or do you jump to when Hugo is the protector and tell the story from there? But we already know how Hugo, because we saw the church, so I don't know how a reboot would work. And as for a sequel slash prequel, well, there's loads of stories that can be told in between Jacob becoming Protector and the 815 crash landing. 2,000 years of story of Egyptians and Sumerians and all sorts of people coming to the island. There's loads of stories that can be told, but that doesn't mean they should be. Can leave that to our imaginations, maybe. Leave it to the fan forums and the theorists. And so how would I do a sequel if I was forced into it? If I was forced into making a sequel, how would I do it? I don't know. How Mother got to be the Protector, how she got to the island, where she came from. That'd probably be a bit of a boring story. Maybe the story of the Egyptians on the island, because they were there for some time. A few hundred years probably. Again, would that make an interesting story? I don't think so. Now we're into complicated questions. Question 20. How does Desmond's story end? A complicated question with a complicated answer. Desmond was already having flash forwards, like visions of the future, because of the turning the key and being exposed to the power of the whatever was under there, the electromagnetism, the light. And then in the final episode he's exposed to the raw power of the light right at its source. That's got to have done something to him, hasn't it? I mean, maybe he's now got the power to see everything. The future, the past, the present, everything that was, everything that could be. Or maybe he's just gone back to being a normal person again and he gets reunited with Penny. There's no way Hugo and Ben are going to leave him unhappy. So, yeah, probably he gets reunited with Penny. That's the happy ending. Or maybe he teams up with Hugo and Ben to ensure that the island never needs another Protector again. Relieves anybody else of having to take on that burden. Maybe. Question 21. Who raises Ji-Yun? And that is a very, very complicated scenario. Sun was very rich off of the compensation she got from Oceanic. That enabled her to buy a controlling share in her father's company. Now that she's dead, surely that controlling share will go to her daughter. So we know, what do we know of Sun's father as a father? We know what he was like as a human being, not very nice. But as a father, manipulative, I don't know. I don't actually know. And it all depends on the mother. I mean, the mother could have just taken Ji-Yun away, escaped herself, and bring her up herself. Or Sun's father could get involved, in which case Ji-Yun isn't probably going to have a happy childhood. But she is the controlling shareholder in the company. So whatever happens, that is going to be the deciding factor on what Mr. Pike does. Does he manipulate and corrupt her to be as bad as him, or a little version of him? Does he try and manipulate her out of her money, out of her inheritance? I don't know. Maybe we'll revisit that question at a later date. Either way, it probably doesn't look altogether great for Ji-Yun. Number 22. What about the fan theory that David is real and is Jack and Kate's son after they slept together the night before the Ajira flight? He could be, but then that would only make him like a year and a half old. Why would he appear as a teenager, almost a man? I suppose there's no evidence to deny it, but I would prefer David as a construct of that scenario. there's another reason. Why would it be Jack and Juliet's kid? Either way, I prefer to think of it as David as a construct of the scenario to show Jack that he has got what it takes to be a better father than his father was. That was a deep-rooted concern of Jack's. It may not have shown all the time, but it was in the back of his head all the time. Question 23. Do you think Kate and Sawyer got it on after leaving? Short answer, no, I don't. I think they may have tried, but I don't think it would have gone anywhere particularly. I don't think it would have been long-lasting. The way Kate said she was waiting a long time for Jack in the Sideways timeline, and both Kate and Sawyer know that the other lost the love of their life, and it would be a reminder to each other of the ones that they lost and left behind. I'm talking about Juliet and Jack, obviously. No, I think they had their chance and they missed it, and now it would just be awkward. So yeah, I think they might have got it on briefly, but the awkwardness and the reminders would have just pulled them apart. The last question, 24, has nothing to do with Lost. It is just asking what are my favourite and least favourite TV shows. So briefly, very, very briefly, because I've got a lot of favourites and I've got a lot of least favourites. I've got a lot of shows that I started to watch and I really enjoyed them, but I just got bored with them halfway through. Doesn't mean to say I disliked them particularly, just didn't have the time for them anymore. Some of my favourite shows of recent years, Game of Thrones, fantastic. Lost will definitely go on my favourites list. The British superhero show Misfits, the American superhero show Heroes, the New Zealand kind of superhero-ish show The Almighty Johnsons, one of the best American political dramas I've ever seen, West Wing. Love that show. I've got all 7 seasons on DVD. Death Note, the Japanese manga. Not any of the live action versions. The animated Death Note. Superb. The Prisoner, the 1960s TV fantasy sci-fi-ish show. A lot of the Marvel TV shows that have been out in recent years I've enjoyed, like Jessica Jones, Daredevil, Iron Fist, Defenders, Luke Cage, WandaVision, Falcon and Winter Soldier. I've enjoyed them all. I like the Marvel cinematic universe, and I like the Marvel TV universe. There were a couple of shows that I did miss from the Marvels, but I'm not that bothered about the ones that I did miss. Also like American Gods, that's currently still showing. I've just finished the 3rd season. Doctor Who, obviously, and I'm also looking forward to the 3rd season of Manifest, starring Josh Dallas of Once Upon a Time fame. I've also just started watching The Man in the High Castle, which is fascinating and superb. As for shows that I gave up on, Arrow, a lot of the DC shows I eventually gave up on. Things like Smallville, Arrow, Gotham. Batman was never one of my favourites. Supergirl, even the Flash and DC Legends of Tomorrow, I eventually gave up on. Same with things like The Walking Dead. I think I got to about the 3rd season and just got bored with it. The 100 I got bored with. Watchmen, the TV show. I loved the film, but the TV show absolutely did not meet my expectations. And Westworld. Again, I love the film, starring Yul Brynner, but the first couple of episodes I watched of Westworld did not impress me, I'm afraid. It's why I tend to avoid watching TV shows based off of films. TV shows based off of books, yes, they tend to be pretty good, like American Gods, like Good Omens. But the ones that have already, that are based off of already existing films, don't tend to appeal to me. And obviously, I'm also enjoying Leftovers and The Fringe at the moment. This is it. This is the last. I've got no more questions. If there's a question you want to ask me that I've missed off of this video, pop it down below, because there's bound to be a second video at some point. But like everything, I wouldn't hold your breath. Thanks for watching. Catch you later. Bye bye. Brought out a way of thinking or a way of looking at things afresh. No, I won't do that. We might go a little bit deep, but I want to save the deeper. I'm saying deeper a lot, aren't I? I don't know. Do I choose the drug addict or the drug warlord, or the murderer, or the double murderer, or the multi-murderer, or the torturer? Ah, it's so hard. It's so hard to choose. I don't know. John, Jack, Jean, James, Jacob, Ji-Yoon, Juliet, Jay-Lee, Jeremy Bentham, and Jughead. There's an awful lot of names beginning with J, isn't there? I wonder why. And each one of those examples, there's multiple, but she grew on me. She grew on me a lot. Could you tell that I really want to get through that intro quickly so I could get onto the meat of this video? So I feel as though I should be fully prepared for this, for making this video, but somehow I'm not. Helen, on the other hand, I'm sure she was tried to be portrayed as. Question 7. Okay. Favourite scenes, moments or lines? It took me a while to compile 10, but here we go. Dead Pakistani, Guam, The False Statue for the First Time, Dr. Wizard, You Don't Buy the Ring, Desmond, I Love You, Penny and Desmond Reunite, Walt Gives Vincent to Shannon, and Stupid Golf. Question 12. Really, I should have actually written the list. I'll answer that question in a minute. Okay, then. There's one thing. There's one thing I've just thought of. And it's not so much on the unanswered questions. It's more something that was revealed that I didn't think needed to be revealed. And the reveal was a little bit disappointing. And that was in Across the Sea, where we found out who Adam and Eve actually were. The skeletons in the cave. That I didn't think was a question that really needed to be answered. And if it did, then that answer was very unsatisfying. Question whatever one's next. I've lost count. 20. How does Desmond's story end? He dies. The deeper. I'm saying deeper a lot, aren't I? I'm sorry about this, but just after the crash, while still trying to survive, who would have happily killed and eaten Vincent? Why ask that question? Okay then. Sawyer, yeah, Sawyer would have. I mean, if Walt hadn't been there, I think Sawyer would have just gone straight for dog meat. At one point, I would have been happy to feed Shannon to Vincent, but that's a completely different story. I don't really know why I've put that in there.